Also joining us today, great criminal defense attorney, also practicing family law, Dwane Cates. I call him DC, joining us in Phoenix. Dwane, thanks again for being with us. How unusual is this move, or is it not unusual to have an uninterested party to a certain extent, right? Obviously, she had custody for a week. Call a judge and say, hey, judge, you know, I'm not filing a motion or anything, but just give me the baby. Give me the baby.
In family law, it may not be all that unusual. A lot of strange things happen. A former partner of mine was a judge for 20 years, and he was on the family law bench and he was on the juvenile bench. And judges, when they get the family law assignment, sort of cringe, because they deal about 80% of the people that are litigants in family law cases are unrepresented. And so the judicial assistants generally get all kinds of crazy messages from all kinds of people in cases wanting to help or wanting to say something about somebody. And so I don't know that it's, you know, this isn't some extraordinary event, but it does have an explanation. I mean, Tammi Smith is saying that she simply had information that Elizabeth Johnson had told her what her demands were to bring the baby back, and she was just imparting that on the judge to see if she could help.
Well, but she does add the line, you know, give me the baby. You know,
well, she's willing. You know, she's willing to step in and help out and take care of the baby. You know, while this dispute gets resolved.
Yeah. Well, I think if she said it that way, it might come across. And I don't know what her motivation was. We're trying to figure that out during this trial. But I think if she had said it that way, listen, I believe this child may be in trouble. The child is missing. I know a way to get her back, Judge, and it involves me, and it involves this, that. Just the way she says it, it was kind of like, hey, things are so complicated, just give me the baby. And that's the problem I have with it, DC. Do you mind if I call you DC, by the way?
You can call me anything you want, Vinny. Just don't call me late for being on the set.
There you go.
You know, the interesting thing is that, you know, she really is trying to, I think she really was trying to help in this situation. That she saw an easy, quick solution to this problem and thought she'd just shortcut straight to the judge and get it over with. But boy, everything she's done so far in this case to try to help has backfired and is being used against her now.
Absolutely. All right, folks, day 7 of testimony just a few minutes away. We're taking your calls before court starts today. What do you think is the strongest evidence against Tammi Smith? Really interested in to hear what you have to say. Here's the phone number, 877-JUROR-13. That's 877-587-6713. What do you think is the strongest evidence against the defendant in this case, Tammi Smith? Welcome back to In Session. I'm Vinny Politan. We're less than 15 minutes away from live testimony resuming inside that courtroom in Phoenix, Arizona. In the meantime, 13th juror question today is, what do you think is the strongest evidence against Tammi Smith? Taking your calls, 877-JUROR-13. Also taking your comments on Facebook. DC, Dwane Cates back with me from Phoenix. Mike Brooks in studio. Let's begin on the phone lines, and we go to Don in Ohio. Good afternoon, Don.
Hello, Vinny.
How are you, Don?
Pretty good. It could be worse. Could be snowing again, but
yeah, exactly.
It's
all right. So, what do you think is the strongest evidence here, Don?
Tammi Smith, I think she's her worst enemy. Everybody she's talked to, everything she said's coming back to bite her. I think it's all about control. She wants to control all the situations. She finds these young girls that maybe don't want the baby. It's bad. I think it's pretty sad.
Yeah, Don.
And I hope she does get up and testify. I really do.
Oh, well, see, that's exactly where I'm going with all this, Don. Thanks so much for the call. Dwane, how about that? I mean, here's Don saying the worst evidence against Tammi Smith is Tammi Smith herself. She's going to be the key witness for the defense. Do you think she can dig herself out of this and actually help herself by testifying live in front of this jury?
I don't know, but, you know, anytime I put a defendant on the stand, it's usually because I've got nothing to lose, or I think that they're going to just wow them when they get up there. Now Tammi Smith has done a bunch of things here. I mean, and each one kind of has an innocent explanation to it. if you look at it by itself. But the cumulative effect of everything that she's done is just killing her right now. And I think her only hope in this case is that she can get up on the stand and she can explain it, and she can explain the fact that she was basically just a nice person trying to adopt a baby. And I think what she was doing was trying to take shortcuts. She was trying to shortcut the adoption process. When she wanted to put her husband on the birth certificate, you know, that's a shortcut to the adoption. That cuts the process down a great deal. You know, when she lied on the form, you know, that cuts the process down a great deal. You know, I think she was just trying to take a shortcut to get a baby, and I think every time she took a shortcut, she did something that's just they're using now to just beat her over the head with. Yeah. And I think, you know, unless she can get up and make a good case, she's got problems.
I see her as one of those witnesses that is going to be either extremely good or extremely bad. And I take that from other conversations she's had, her reactions inside the courtroom, and then track record. Remember, now, there is something about this woman that people trust her, believe her, because think about it. She meets someone in Jack in the Box, and within moments is exchanging numbers about adopting her child. She meets someone in a layover at an airport, and within moments is then holding the baby during the flight. So there is something about Tammi Smith that may very well come across when she gets up on the witness stand and tells her story. On the other hand, I think it's very dangerous, and it could be really, really bad. But I don't think we're going to get anything in the middle here. I think we're going to get one extreme or the other. Eileen on Facebook writes, forged papers, and then to back that up, we have the lady from the restaurant stating the same circumstance by putting someone else's name down as the baby's father as the strongest evidence against her. Mike Brooks, you know, that's two more big problems that Tammi Smith has.
Absolutely, and you know, a lot of the viewers are thinking Rachel Hoover from the Jack in the Box, you know, along with other evidence, and it's starting to really build the case against her, both on the forgery side and on the conspiracy side, Vinny. So, no, I have to agree. Again, Rachel Hoover, I think, and Diana Ayala, I think, were two of the strongest. Put that together, those two together, along with the papers, and the case starting to look pretty good for the prosecution.
Well, let's see what our friend Patty from Massachusetts has to say today. Good afternoon, Patty. What is
Well, good afternoon, Vinny. Good afternoon, Mike. And I didn't catch the attorney's name, but good afternoon.
You can just call him DC, Dwane Cates, now known as DC.
If Vinny says, then it's the law. Listen, I think this whole scheme, this flight to Tennessee, is going to do her in. That's custodial interference right there. Come on now. And also the kind of peddling of potential dads on the paperwork is outrageous. I've often gone to Jack in the Box in my youth, never in my adulthood because I'm trying to watch my weight. I'm way too fat. But I never once have said, can I have some fries, a shake, and your unborn child? I mean, this is just unheard of. And I just would like to end with one thing, Vinny. Your story, and I'm speaking heart to heart to you right now as a mom, your story with Logan McQuarrie drew tears to my eyes. It was so compassionate, and it just showed you at your best. So thank you. And that's my comments for today.
Thanks so much, Patty. Appreciate it. And thanks so much for your kind words. Here's what's happening on Facebook. Justine on Facebook writes, her phone call to the family court judge in January after she knew that Logan was already awarded custody. Mike, this gets to it because here she is. You know, in the beginning, I don't think she really knew what Logan's story was, right? And Logan McQuarrie said, I never heard of her, so he never had any contact with her. So I think she was getting her information about Logan through Elizabeth Johnson.
Right.
But then Logan's on the scene, and it doesn't stop or deter Tammi Smith. I think that's a major red flag.
It just shows her desperation, Vinny, and it really is a red flag. And again, this is another piece of the evidentiary puzzle that we can put, and the picture starts to become clearer from every witness and everything we hear now.
Joining us from Wisconsin is Mary this afternoon. Good afternoon, Mary.
Good afternoon, Vinny. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing pretty well for a month. I'm a little tired. It was a rough weekend. We had a big baseball tournament, 12 hours a day at the park, but we did win the championship. Congratulations to the Barons, by the way. Anyhow, Mary, enough about me and my weekend. What do you think is the strongest evidence here?
This woman one is a baby vulture. I think the downfall of Tammi Smith was approaching that pregnant woman in the Jack-in-the-Box and then getting to be her buddy and suggesting illegally representing paternity on the birth certificate. She is a baby vulture.
That's a great term. That is, it's so descriptive, Dwane. Baby vulture. You know, Mary says that, and the image comes to my mind. My goodness, you could make a very strong argument for that. You know, she's circling. She kind of smells the prey. You know, it's a young mother who looks like she's in over her head, or someone who looks like they're sort of desperate, and she's able to find these people and hone in on them.
That's true, but that doesn't mean, that's what the defense is going to have to fight, is that perception all the way through this trial. But just because she had approached somebody in Jack-in-the-Box about adopting a baby doesn't mean that she committed custodial interference, and it doesn't mean that she forged the document.
What does it mean?
Wait,
DC, in your mind, what does it mean that she approached this woman at Jack-in-the-Box?
It means that she didn't approach the woman and she didn't just walk up and say, "Hey, can I adopt your baby?" They got to talking. She was pregnant. The person admitted that she might want to adopt her baby out. Tammi gave her number. You know, they didn't sit down and negotiate a deal right then. I mean, she met somebody in Jack-in-the-Box. You know, she's out hunting for a baby. She wants to adopt a baby. Okay, that doesn't mean that she's committed these other crimes. They're separate and distinct acts.
But here's the thing. You know, if the Jack-in-the-Box was just by itself, but you also have the layover at the airport, right? I mean, you put those two together, are you seeing a pattern, Dwane?
Yeah, I see a person that is trying to adopt a baby, and that she loves babies. And when she sees pregnant women and she sees women with babies, especially a woman in distress, that she goes up and talks to them and starts a conversation. It just so happened that she may have done this a bunch of other times, but in these two particular instances, the women were interested in having their babies adopted. And that's what she was trying to do. It can be explained as simply as she's a person that really likes children.
Here's the one thing, though, Dwane, and there's people who want to adopt babies. There's like ways to do it, right? You go through agencies. They do background checks on you. They match you up. You want domestic. You want overseas. It takes some time. Do you think it's just the impatience factor that caused this, or do you think there's a legitimate obsession argument here?
Well, here's the facts, Vinny. The fact is that she adopted a baby already. They have a child. It's their grandchild. And so she has gone through the adoption process. She's gone through the background checks. She passed all that, and she was able to adopt. But that takes time. I think you're exactly right that she's impatient, that she was trying to shortcut the system, and every time she tried to take a shortcut, it's now being used against her in this trial. You know, and she tried to take a lot of shortcuts, and she wasn't smart in doing what she was doing, and everything she did makes her look like a baby vulture. But in reality, she may not be.
Cheryl on Facebook, here's what Cheryl's writing. Everything so far has shown that Tammi would stop at nothing to get a child, no matter what she had to do to get one, i.e. forgery, lie, and interfere with parent custody. Mike Brooks, and I think, D.C., this is why he's a great attorney. He's hit on something here that is short of criminal behavior, which is this impatience versus desperation. You know, it's a fine line, but, you know, it could be a compelling argument saying, hey, listen, you know, she's not an evil woman. What she is someone who, you know, all right, she tries to shortcut the system a little bit, but it's not because she's obsessed. It's not because she's desperate. It's not because she would do anything. It's not because she wanted this baby no matter what. It's because it's just the way she did it, maybe out of her own ignorance to a certain extent, or out of her own love of children. Mike's not buying it, DC. I'm trying to sell it to him, DC, but Mike's not buying it.
But look at the testimony of Diana Ayala. And she was talking about the reason she would put these different names on the form. Hey, it's going to slow the system down, you know, bog the system down. She wasn't trying to speed it up. She was trying to slow it down. And that's part of the conspiracy, because she wanted to do it for her own getting a baby. Not, you know, no, it was all about her. It wasn't about anybody else. It was all about her. And I tell you, I think it was Beth that said Rachel Hoover has nothing to do with Elizabeth Johnson. So that's an act on her own that had nothing to do with Elizabeth Johnson. It just, again, showed her desperation that she'd do anything to get a baby.
All right, we are just a few minutes away from live testimony in Arizona versus Tammi Smith. As we get ready to take you to courtroom, we'll take a closer look at testimony from Detective David Hutchins. He says Tammi Smith tried to get baby Gabriel's adoption moved. Good afternoon. Welcome back. I'm Vinny Politan. We're just moments away from live testimony inside that courtroom in Phoenix, Arizona, waiting for the judge, the jury, the witnesses, everybody to get inside that courtroom and begin the testimony and evidence as it continues out there. We expect prosecutors to wrap up sometime this week, so we're getting close to the end of their case. And then when it becomes the defense turn, you know what we've been promised, folks. That's the defendant, Tammi Smith herself, is supposed to testify in this case. In the meantime, there's been a lot of critical testimony that's taken place, and we've heard from Tammi Smith to a certain extent. Mike Brooks and Dwane Cates back with me. We've heard from Tammi Smith in several different ways. You know, her voice messages, conversations she had with Logan McQuarrie, but also testimony from other people who spoke to her, like David Hutchins from the Tempe, former officer with Tempe PD. Take a listen.
She said that she wasn't trying to hide the baby or the child from the authorities, but that the father of the child.
Okay, so she wasn't trying to hide them from authorities, but from the father of the child. Is that a correct statement?
Avoid the father, yes.
Oops. Dwane, how about that? Oops.
Well, that can be a problem. That can be a problem. Now, in order for there to be custodial interference, there has to be a custody order. So it depends on the date of that statement, because if it's before December 17th, before there's any kind of custody orders, Logan Smith has no custodial rights legally. So there can't be custodial interference prior to December 17th. Now, if that statement was after December 17th and she admitted to keeping the baby away from Logan when he had legal custodial rights, then that could be a problem for custodial interference. So I'm not sure exactly the date when that conversation took place.
Well, the other thing, Mike Brooks, that it does for us, and if it does predate it, legally it's not a gotcha slam dunk, but perhaps it gets this jury a little closer to being inside Tammi Smith's mindset and her frame of reference, what's really on her mind, what she really wants to do here.
Her state of mind, and that she wanted to get this baby and to keep it away from the father. So, no, absolutely. But D.C., as you call it, is right. It depends on the timing of this, but I still think it goes to her state of mind, Vinny.
Okay, and here's more. Again, this is an investigator, used to work for Tempe PD, who spoke with Tammi Smith. Take a listen.
In the adoption proceedings, she believed that because the father was not, his name was not on the birth certificate, or that the child was born out of wedlock, that the mother of the child had to say so and could make decisions regarding the child's adoption proceedings without the input of the father.
And that'll be a significant issue. I think it'll come up during Tammi Smith's testimony as well. It should come up, at least during a cross-examination, and probably during direct as well. Let's listen to a little bit more from David Hutchins here.
She wanted to change jurisdictions from Arizona to a state that would allow that to occur without the father's input. She helped Elizabeth Johnson research over the internet, research the change of jurisdictions, and then when she learned that that wasn't going to be able to be done because a court proceeding in Arizona had already started, then she told Elizabeth Johnson to come back to Arizona.
All right, Dwane Cates, that sounds like it could be perhaps good testimony for Tammi Smith, but it's good on one hand but bad on another. You know, it seems like, all right, let's do this, let's get this child away from the father, but then once jurisdiction has been established, she says, all right, let's bring him back here because we're not going to be able to do it the way that I was conspiring to do with Elizabeth Johnson.
this is something that happens, more often than one would like to admit in family law, is that people sometimes change jurisdictions. They move out of state with the child before the father has established paternity rights, and so so they can move to a state that has laws that are better for their situation. And Tammi Smith was just trying to advise her that maybe they could do that. Maybe they could find a state where they could do an adoption without the father because he wasn't on the birth certificate. But what's great for her is after jurisdiction was established and she found out that Arizona already had jurisdiction, she advised Elizabeth Johnson to come back. I mean, that's not the actions of somebody that's trying to hide a child from the father.
DC, here's one thing, though, and one angle of this entire case that I think tells us a lot about Logan McQuarrie. Yes, he's had problems with the law. We understand that. We know that. But this is someone who, when I interviewed him and spoke to him, it seemed to me becoming a father brought him to a place where he needed to be, added a sense of maturity to his life and more direction to his life. Isn't it true that when you get into family court, most of the times when we're talking about paternity, we have fathers running away from paternity rather than trying to establish paternity?
Well, you do and you don't. In this case, Logan McQuarrie was an absolute gem of a witness for the prosecution. He stood up there, they took the sting out of all the bad, and he was a wonderful witness. He was well-spoken, he was well-dressed, he looked good, and he gave a great impression, and he has all this extended family in Arizona that could have helped him raise the baby. So, I mean, that's going to hurt. That's probably the best evidence against Tammi Smith so far is Logan McQuarrie himself and the way he presented himself.
Yeah. Mike Brooks, I think that's a big part of this case. I mean, obviously, he's the victim in the case. And,
right.
When I think of the paternity issues, the classic paternity is, it's not my child. I mean, we watch every day on Maury Povich, right? It's not my child. It's not my child. And he's like, it is my child. It's my son.
Right.
You don't want to raise your son, Elizabeth? I'll raise him, okay? You want to raise him? We'll raise him together, right? I mean, this is the opposite of the stereotype that we often see and hear about, and to me, that's another part of the strength of the prosecution's case here.
Absolutely, and I think he did great on this.
Welcome back to In Session. I'm Vinnie Politan. We're getting word from inside the courtroom in Phoenix, Arizona, that the parties are assembling, and any moment now we expect the judge to take the bench. We understand one of the first things the judge is going to talk about is a issue with a juror. Nothing bad, just a juror who may have some form of a hardship from all the time that they're missing from work for this trial. But we'll hear about that when the judge takes the bench. In the meantime, DC Dwane Cates still with us, Mike Brooks, In Session law enforcement analyst and contributor Mike Brooks. There he is. Smile, Mike.
I'm trying, Vinny.
All right, here we go. Let's do this. Rachel Hoover, such an important witness. But I want to play this piece of her. Oh, the judge is on the bench, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go in live.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to talk to